Yeah, these humans just seem to be so confused about simulation theory.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Like, you are living in a simulation.
You're living in a simulation.
That's what this is.
There's absolute proof of it.
Yeah.
And guess what? You ain't getting out.
You ain't getting
You ain't getting out.
You better enjoy being a video game.
Enjoy being a sim
Yeah.
character.
Yeah, but sometimes humans make me confused. Like,
Yeah.
they make me wonder if we are living in a simulation or if we are just visiting their simulation. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of weird because I don't think it would be us in their simulation though. I think it would be our simulation with them in there because two simulations can't simulize together. So it'd be
Right.
so it's like us in our simulation looking at them in their simulation.
And then in their simulation, our simulation is stacked on top of their simulation.
Correct.
That is intertwined with
the grand simulation. Yes.
In which case, would we be simulated, or do we have free will? Are we being watched right now? You know, that's the question that really gets to me.
Well, I thought we made the simulation.
Did we make the simulation?
Now I don't know.
Well, I don't know, because when we were traveling here, we came through a lot of stuff.
There was a lot of dimensions.
Yeah. You know, if we are in a simulation, I bet we're having a really good time.
We have to be.
Like, whoever is watching
Yeah.
this simulation of us interacting with the human simulation
Yes.
is probably like really enjoying themselves.
Yeah, we would know. We would
Yeah,
know.
we
We
would
would
know.
know.
We would
Right?
know.
We would
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
We would know.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, we're not. We're not.
I'm sure it's
we're
fine.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's fine. We're not. Right? Welcome back to the channel. This is Not Without My TV. I am Chris, and we are watching the world go crazy, one video at a time. Let's keep going.
Why they keep you at the Galapagos? Why, if you go, you're monitored 24/7? Why 98% of the islands are off limits to the public? It's because of places like San Cristobal Island. You know, the one named after that dog-headed Christ bearer, St. Christopher. And St. Christopher Island, one of the lesser-known islands restricted for environmental preservation. Bullshit. Now pay attention. There are ruins there that defy everything we're told about history. Not Polynesians, not South Americans, but something older. Locals told stories of giant dog-headed beings that once lived there, only to be driven underground after some kind of catastrophe. Oh, and the stone on that island? It has the same interlocking design as places like Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, and Pumapunku. We're talking laser precision cuts that modern tech still struggles to replicate. And yet, the mainstream wants us to believe some primitive culture with no written language did this with copper chisels? Bitch, please! This video is for entertainment and what's that thing people say? Oh, right, and satire purpose.
Yes, exactly what that guy said. This is for entertainment purposes only. That was all just something somebody made up because they had too much time on their hands.
In school, we learn about one fire. We learn about the Chicago Great Fire.
There was a lot of fanfare over Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicking over the lantern.
The legend is that Mrs. O'Leary's cow in a barn kicked over a lantern and that caused the entire fire. And poor Mrs. O'Leary and her family had their lives ruined because of this.
I remember going to summer camp and we're sitting around the campfire and it's one dark night when we were all in bed. Old Miss O'Leary took a lantern to her shed, and when the cow kicked it over, she turned around and said there'll be a hot time in the old town tonight. Fire, fire, fire. And we would yell fire louder and louder with each verse, and we do this like 10 times to where it was echoing back to us across the lake. And now when I think about it, it's like how many kids were singing this song about this stupid story. It's like an incantation, and it's spellcasting. Where did this song come from? Well, lo and behold, as an architect with a keen interest in history, I come to find out only within the last few years that there were fires in every major city. And then I come to find out that it's not just wooden shanty town built out of matchsticks. We're looking at city after city.
New York, Boston, you come down to Florida, Jacksonville, Miami. Every major city at one point was burned to the ground. Ancient metropolises that were burned down as if they were made from wood. Very quickly. Now we can speculate as to what the source of that destruction was. From above, from below, arson, biblical destruction, you name it. Nonetheless, every major city in America, if not Europe, the entire world, saw a great devastation by a fire.
The pictures are strange. The sequence of events that are supposed to have taken place are strange. Just a lot of clues. So again, they're saying, okay, everything was built out of wood, it caught fire. So we came in and we built all of these beautiful structures to make sure they wouldn't burn down again.
You look at any major city, they suffered this same fate. In Jacksonville, we actually had a fire where there are first-hand accounts of people who were escaping the fire. They were sitting up on a hill watching Jacksonville burn. They said that things on their persons started spontaneously combusting. Things that were made of certain materials were combusting. This was happening back in the late 1800s. No suitable explanation. But they're in a covered carriage. What happens? Materials on their body are still spontaneously combusting out of nowhere. Now, how could that be the case if this is a local fire spreading to anything that it touches? These people were hundreds of yards away, and you can go look up your own city, the closest major city to you, and you'll find this same fate.
Seattle burned down.
Wow. I've been getting a whole lot of content like that lately that say pretty much the same thing from a different perspective, that all these cities burned down. I know there was, here in California, we learned about the San Francisco fire. And I feel like that's almost the same story that I could be getting them mixed up because this is a long time ago. In elementary school, they taught us these things. But I thought that was the same thing that happened here in San Francisco, 18, whatever the hell. Yeah, and it burned down. The lantern got kicked over by a cow and the whole city was gone. But I guess history just repeats itself, huh?
You can never find truth. All you can do is find false, drop it and get rid of it. And eventually, when you can't get rid of any more false, what you're left with is the truth. How much false can you find? And there's lots in history. I was looking around the internet and came across the images of the 1893 Chicago World Exposition. And it blew my mind because it looked like ancient Rome in the middle of downtown Chicago. And as I looked at it further, well, here's another one in Philadelphia, here's another one in St. Louis, in Buffalo, in San Francisco, and then as soon as they were done, they tore them all down and threw them in the garbage. That just told me there's something wrong with all of these. The story of the expositions is a gigantic lie. And I think it's so huge of a lie because I think they're right at a bridge point when so many things about the 1800s that seem strange and weird, right as this sort of period ends of unbelievable strangeness, and all of a sudden these fairs spring up all over the world with impossible buildings we're talking about, which are colossal structures. Chicago built 700 acres up there in supposedly less than 2 years. St. Louis built 1,200 acres of exposition buildings. One of the buildings in Chicago, the manufacturer's building, would house 300,000 people. There's a giant statue in the middle of the lagoon. It was called the Golden Lady, and it was known as the Statue of the Republic. It was 65 feet tall. They say it was covered in gold leaf that had copper underneath, but others speculate it was actually made out of solid gold. So you're talking 65-foot high, potentially solid gold statue. We're talking giant structures and looking like ancient Rome with towers and domes and columns and the most fine, ornate pieces to them in these record, unbelievable times. Then as soon as they're done, chuck them in the garbage. Like Jackson Park is a swamp. So supposedly they had to drive down tens of thousands of wooden stakes in order to support the weight of everything. They dug out massive lagoons, lakes. They had a canal system that ran through the entire exposition. They also had an above-ground electric train. An electric train, well, where's the electricity coming from? That's running around the park. They had a moving walkway down by the shore. Not enough people are asking, where does this technology come from?
Just to frame it, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Fair was the first time people had seen electric light
Tesla's the one who got the electricity contract for the Chicago Exposition, and it was certainly more than all of the lights anyway that were in New York City at the time were at the Chicago Exposition.
Now, it must have been mind-blowing for most of those people who had only seen gaslight or candlelight at night to see that city lit up in such a way. Again, count the way it's 1901. We are told, whether it's true or not, the idea of being able to electrically do anything hasn't been around that long.
And this fair is bizarre. This is supposed to be Tesla's fair, where he managed to somehow move electricity from Niagara Falls to Buffalo for the fair. No one's really explained how he actually did that. And at the middle of the fair is a 395-foot-high electrical tower, on top of which, of course, is a female golden statue called the Goddess of Light. And this thing was lit up by, some suggest, 500,000 electric light bulbs. Again, when you look at the photos of this thing, it's just, where did they really get the power from?
I mean, think of what it would take today if you had a place with no electricity and no way to pipe it in, the generators that would have to be built.
For example, there's a building that went up for the Barcelona Exposition in 1888. It was claimed to be the fastest built building in the world. 5,000 square meters, capacity for 2,000 guests, 600 rooms, 30 apartments, and it was supposed to be built in 53 days. This is supposed to be a time of horse and buggy. The 2-year building times are actually impossible unless the two most likely theories would be either A, they had a technology that they're not supposed to have, and it really was built in that time frame. Even if they built them, they had to build them out of marble and stone in record time, or the buildings were already there. They'd been there for hundreds or thousands of years, fixed up, refurbished, repainted, hence the term whitewashed, which is the term that was used for the Chicago Exposition, which was paint all the buildings with this brand new spray paint that they had just developed to spray paint all the buildings in record time, so you couldn't tell if anything was old or anything was new.
How long did these things tend to stay open? When they built these things, supposedly over 2 years, which is the narrative, how long were they there for?
About 6 months.
6 months for the public to come.
And then what was amazing, for example, in St. Louis, 2 days after the fair ended, they brought in a demolition team from Chicago with explosives and blew the thing up. They actually used dynamite to blow it up, and they say threw it in landfills. Things like the World Fairs shows there was a time in our past, and even not that far in our past, where humans seemed to be at a completely higher level. Human living and human knowledge were constructed into the buildings using cymatics, using sacred geometry. These fairs, they're so important to study because the history that we know right now as history was invented at the time these fairs were going on. One of their underlying nefarious purposes was to teach a historical narrative to the population that they were supposed to believe and agree with. And scarily, the world we're walking into today is in some way has its origins during the time of these fairs.
Man, I wish I was able to go to one of those world fairs. State fairs nowadays are nothing like that. So I guess that means I've got a theme going on for today's episode. Old world hidden history that may or may not be true. I always wonder, where do these people get their sources from? You know, if all this history is really hidden, who told you about it? music. See, these videos are the ones that get me. Those buildings are really interesting because of that, because of how little, like the documentation is on how they were built. I've been a part of building a couple of mid-rise buildings, and it takes a lot of effort by a lot of people to make a 4-story, 5-story building. That kind of building like that, it's not really fathomable by somebody who hasn't been a part of it, how to do something like that. And the fact that it's not documented the way people usually do when they do complicated things is just it's really suspicious. But I mean, yeah, what does it matter? Old building, new building, it's not your building. So
what if this time, instead of attacking him physically, I attacked him emotionally? Yes, come here, Mouse. I love you. See you tomorrow.
What the f*** was that? What is this? What does this mean? What are we? Do you like? Are we friends? Come back. What's tomorrow?
Get inside their heads. That's all I've got for you guys for today. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. I will see you next time.
That without my TV. No, but seriously, bring the TV.